Welcome into the third episode of Behind the Wheel, powered by Project Arrow. I'm Jason Stein, here with my co-host, Flavio Volpe, head of the APMA.
Jason, wonderful to be together. As always, today's a special day behind the wheel. It's a racing wheel.
A racing wheel this time. That's right. We're not talking about government leaders or tier one suppliers, CEOs. We're talking to Roman Angelis. And never heard of him? You will. Roman is a world-class driver and a real up-and-coming talent in the racing world.
You know, he's so young, he could barely order a drink in a bar, and he barely has his driver's license. And of all the things that most kids look forward to first, instead, he's just out there winning races on tracks all over the world.
Winning a lot of them, a very special guest and a very special interview with a kid who began his racing career karting at the age of 9, and at age 13, won his first title, the 2014 Canadian National Karting Championships, and it just rolled from there.
Yeah, the Prime Minister tweeted him once, drivers at Daytona, they respect him, and he's only going up in this racing world.
Tecumseh, Ontario knows him well, and we figure the world will soon.
Talent, ability, character, and the kid is humble. It's such a nice combination.
It's a wonderful combination. Roman Angelis, our third guest on Behind the Wheel, powered by Project Arrow. Episode 3 doesn't give us a minister in the cabinet. It also doesn't give us the leader of a major tier one supplier. It only gives us the future. And that is the future of racing. And I would argue the present of racing too. But we're going to get into Roman's story right now. What a pleasure to have you on the program. Welcome to Behind the Wheel, Roman.
Thank you guys for having me. Looking forward to it.
So
great to see you, Roman.
Flavio is, as you may know, is an enormous car guy. And he's been following your success right from the beginning, including the time when he showed up in your garage and your father showed off all of the trophies that filled the garage, that fills the garage, perhaps hundreds of trophies. I've heard. The karting scene must seem like a long time ago to you right now.
Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, I still feel young and feel like it's been a short spurt of me racing, but looking back, I'm 22 now and I started when I was 9. So well over half my life now. The last time I competed in a go-kart race was when I was 14. So to say I've been in cars for 8 years is pretty crazy to think about. I'm not old, but I feel old. I was always sort of the young guy in GT racing. And now I'm starting to get to that middle ground where, the 25, 30, I'm getting there. So.
Your dad was a racer, right? I mean, you were always around the track. You grew up around the racetrack. What's your first memory of being around the scene?
My first memory would be in West Palm Beach. My dad and another really good family friend decided that they wanted to buy a race car. At the time, it was called a Radical, was the car. And me, my mom, my sister, and my Nona were on vacation. We're staying at my Nona's condo. And my dad said, "Oh, I have to go to the track. We're going to go look to buy a car." But obviously this whole day had been planned out where, he was going to test this car. And that was my first sort of memory is me and my Nona went to go watch and hang out. And one of the guys that was coaching my dad is actually a guy I now race with. So definitely a cool story and a good memory, but obviously tons of great memories in all the years with karting and the people I've met and places we've traveled to. So most of my best memories are at a track.
I'll tell you, the first time I met you, Roman, your dad had me out at Mosport and took me out in a few laps in a 911 GT3 car, and then out in a Ferrari 458, and actually scared the lights out of me. I mean, I'm a car guy, but being a car guy, a guy who knows how to race is two different things. I like the product. The Angelis boys know how to manipulate it at high speeds. So he takes me out and he goes, you gotta see Roman. He's practicing right now. He's on you were on that go-kart track there off by the side of the garage. And he goes, "Look, you know what, Jason, both of my boys were in competitive sports and one of them was quite serious in baseball." He says, "Well, you think you got something and you got costs in baseball." He goes, I got a kid in karting. I've got a 5-time world karting champion here trying to teach Roman how to be real tough in traffic. He's fast. He's got to get real tough in traffic. So he's showing him how to attack the corners, how to attack to find the spot and overtake and switch back. And I go, okay, what I know? I'm watching the two of you on the track, and I'm like, holy cow, that guy is attacking Roman like crazy. He's just a kid, and he's holding. I thought you were holding your own pretty well. And so, Jason, they come off the track, the two of them, and Roman's quite tall. He was just as tall at 13 years old. They come out, and he goes, Roman, say hi to Flavio. He takes his helmet off, and it's the other guy. And I go, hold on. You were attacking that guy? You were the guy that I was saying was being a little too hard on him? And I go, wow, man. This kid's going places. He's got it. That was my first time, Roman. I saw you on the track. It was that little go-karting track. I'm sure that, you do 120, 130 on there, but that killer instinct. I think you can, for a lot of things in life, you can train for skill, but that instinct to go for the corner, does it come from here? Did you learn it from your dad? Where'd it come from?
I don't know. I always have this theory with people that are athletes and especially people that kind of excel in a sport, where I think no matter what sport they chose at 7, 6, whatever the age is, I think they could have done something with it. I think it's just more of a mental thing and the way you're raised. And I don't know, I just like not to downplay other sports or whatever, but I think if I was 6 and I started mountain biking, I think I probably would have fallen in love with mountain biking and wanted to go somewhere with it. Like, I don't know. I just think, I think it's more of a mindset thing. You look at some of these like really good NBA players who had football contracts and stuff like that. I kind of just always had a passion for competing, and really obviously found my niche with racing, with my dad sort of, push starting me into that. But yeah, I think I got super lucky to be put in a position where I found the sport that I kind of thrived in and really enjoyed doing. I always loved cars, always loved racing. Well before I even started go-karting when I was, 6 or 7, just through my dad and going to work with my dad on Sundays and in the excavator and all that stuff. I just love machines. So I think kind of connecting my love for that and love for cars to be able to race was great. And also the fact that I love to compete. So I don't know. That's the days in karting is all development, and it does fly by. I mean, like, you're driving a lot all the time, every weekend, and there's 150 other kids doing the exact same thing that you see every weekend. And, you want to be better than them. And it's like any sport. It just, I think once your mind sort of clicks in that that's what you love and that's what you want to do, you kind of just roll with it. And some of the people that don't love it and don't have the passion for it will weed out, and whoever loves it and commits to it is going to be there in the end. So
when did it get real for you? When did you fully realize that this was going to be more than a weekend hobby to some extent, and that could actually have some legs?
Yeah, I think, I mean, in karting, like I said, there's so many kids that do it, and a lot of them do it because their dad wants them to do it, and because they like cars, they like racing. They don't really know, and we're young, we're 9, right? So you don't know what you like, really. Then I went from cars, or from go-karts into cars, into Formula Ford, still with my dad helping me and I mean, financially and being there every weekend and all that sort of deal. So I think still in that point, it felt like go-karting, where, you have young kids and, it's everybody's sort of paying there to be there. And then I got the opportunity to be with Mark Motors Porsche, who's out of Ottawa, Porsche dealership, Audi, and do the Porsche challenge with them in Canada, in their sort of rookie class, which was the previous generation GT3 Cup car, which was second and a half slower. And they were going to sponsor me, whatever it was, so the entry fee of the car, and then, we had to subsidize tires or fuel, whatever it was back then. So that's when, you realize, okay, now I have somebody who's paying for me to be here, and they're not paying $10,000 or $5,000. They're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I signed the deal to do that on my 16th birthday. So now I'm in grade 9 or 10. And I remember being like, okay, this is starting to get real now. That's sort of when it first I sort of realized that, okay, I think, other people see that I'm talented and maybe have something, not just, my coaches and dad and my no or whatever. So yeah, I think that was probably the first time I realized, this is something that I could continue to do, and hopefully, now I got to start taking it more serious than I was before, because this is something I want to be engulfed in for as long as I can be. So
I thought it was good. I thought it got real when Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister Trudeau, tweeted Lakeshore, Ontario's own. Congratulations on a great race, Roman DeAngelis. Your future behind the wheel is bright.
that was a funny day. So that was after my first Daytona, and I was super delirious. Like, it was, I don't know, 11 o'clock at night on the Sunday after Daytona. I'd been up since Saturday morning, did not sleep one minute. So much adrenaline. I was on the plane, and I think, Flavia, you might have sent the text to my dad. My dad and mom were sitting in front of us, and me and my sister were sitting behind it. I was laughing at everything. I was just like delirious. And my dad shows me the picture of his phone. I don't even think I had Twitter at the time, but he shows me the picture of his phone. He's like, "Oh, the Prime Minister tweeted you. Look how crazy this is." And I just started laughing because I was so tired. I thought it was a joke or didn't realize. I got home, went to bed. The next morning, woke up, and all my buddies had been texting me, like sending me the picture. Then I was like, kind of realized what had happened. So yeah, that was a cool moment.
So you went to Daytona, and you guys finished third, but there's a great story on how you got that ride, because you drove Daytona in an Audi, but you were racing in Porsches. How'd that happen?
Yes. Yeah, this is a great story. So I'm Canadian, I'm young. The Audi Canada decided randomly the year that they put this program together, we want to sponsor a car and put a car in Daytona. The lady who was the head of Audi Canada at the time, her name was Amelia, super nice lady, loved motorsports. And she said, I want more motorsports in Canada, and we want an Audi Canada team. So she called me and she said, I was working for my dad like at night. So she called me and she's like, "Hey, my name's Amelia, Audi Canada. We want to have a car in Daytona. We want a Canadian representative in the car because all the other seats are full. We have our two factory guys who are, one was, I think, German and one was South African. And the other seat is Phil as well, who's now that other seat is now my manager. So it's kind of a funny story. That basically kickstarted my whole career that weekend. But she said, we need X amount of dollars to do this race from you. I said, okay, well, I'm not gonna pay. I don't want to pay, so I'm sorry. I wish you guys the best of luck. If you guys can get more money, just please come back, and I'd love to drive for you. 2 weeks later, she calls again, says, okay, the number's cut in half now. Can you do it? I said, no, we got to do quite a bit better. I still can't afford to do that. And, I can't get the sponsorship together to do that. This is now pretty much early December. So then she calls me, and I'm working. I was power washing hydrovac trucks for my dad, and it's snowing out, and my phone rings, and I answer, and I'm like in this Carhartt onesie jacket washing trucks, and she's like, okay, they got the number down super, super low. And I was like, okay, I can find that money in a month. Give me a month. We'll find the sponsorship and I'll sign the deal. Let's do it. So then I was like, Daytona was a race I always wanted to do as a kid. That was like, for me, that was the pinnacle. So yeah, I ended up, finding a friend of my dad wanted to sponsor the rest of the money, have his logo on the car. And then I did Daytona with Audi. So that was definitely a very special moment. That was kind of my first big deal. And it was kind of fun to orchestrate it myself. And, I remember calling my dad and saying, like, you never guess what I just said on the phone. We're doing Daytona. We're going to Daytona. Now you got to help me find some money.
Well, you don't know what the other side of that conversation was like when your dad called me and said, "Oh my God, you don't know what this kid just did. He got a Daytona ride. I don't know what this is going to cost." And then he came back. He goes, "I think he got it for a tiramisu." And he was on cloud nine. And he talked about the drivers' meeting. And so you're a kid at that time. I don't even know. You're probably still a kid now. But you walk into the drivers' meeting and you're sitting with Fernando Alonso. How'd that feel?
That was cool. I think I was 16 or 17 when I did Daytona. It was 2018. So yeah, that was pretty awesome. And I remember my teammate as well, who was a factory Audi driver. He was freaking out more than I was. He's like, "Oh my God, Fernando Alonso. I love Alonso." And Barrichello was there. There's Lando Norris was there that year. So it was cool. I mean, that was a big step. That particular event and weekend and that series of events is pretty much the reason I'm racing right now. I honestly don't know if I would be driving right now if it wasn't for that. So that's I always put 95% of where I am now because of that situation and how everything worked out. It was I was super fortunate to do that.
Did you chat with them?
Actually, I raced on the same go-karting team as Barrichello's son when I was a kid. So I knew him. So I talked to him quite a bit and he knew Fernando. I didn't really talk to Fernando. My Nonna somehow talked to Fernando though, which is a really funny story.
Okay.
So now my Nonna has
Tell
a crush
us.
on Fernando Alonso. So she every time he races, she's like, is Alonso racing this weekend? I want to watch. Did you see Alonso finish second? He finished third. So
She's happy this
remember
year.
I met him in Daytona, remember?
So
Yeah,
how did they? So what's the story behind the two of them?
I guess my Nonna came to Daytona to watch me when I was with Audi, and she was super sick at the time. But she's like, I'm not staying home. I want to come watch. She would sit outside in the rain watching like the whole time I was in the car. I guess when she was in the pits, she'd walk by Alonso and just started talking to him, just started a conversation with him, which is really funny.
No fear.
Because I didn't really know this until recently. So she's talking about Alonso, and I'm like, why do you like Alonso so much? She's like, because he's a nice guy. I talked to him in Daytona. So it's just funny.
That's Italian nonnas, man.
Yeah.
You can't never underestimate them. I mean, these women have been through so much. They pull food out of the oven with their bare hands. Talking to Fernando Alonso, somebody else's kid.
Yeah,
That's all it is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've really come, I'm sure, to understand the business of racing more. I mean, you just referenced it with sponsorships. I've talked to numerous drivers through the years who get to a certain point and they can't get any further because it isn't just a sport like baseball or soccer to go back to Flavio's point earlier. I mean, there's real investment. There are real commitments. How much more do you understand about that now? And what are the challenges or opportunities around those things?
Yeah, I think that event I was saying with the Audi and organizing that sort of put into perspective how difficult of a sport it is financially and politically, and also the money in motorsports. You have an idea, and I had a really good year that season, and I finished second in both Porsche championships. I was 16 or 17, so I was like, this will be great. Like, I'm gonna get tons of rides next year. And they call you and say they want 200 grand or 300 grand or whatever the number was. And you're like, I don't really know what else I could do right. And then even the following year, I won both the Canadian and American Porsche championships and won, 90% of the races and had an amazing year. Did some other championships and won races there. And I was like, okay, this is for sure. I'm going to get a professional ride next year. And I didn't get a call for 3 months. That was an honest offer to go racing. So that to me was like, I remember saying to my dad, if I can't get a ride next year, then I don't, where it's paid for, I don't want to race anymore, because I think that I did enough where I should deserve a position. And if somebody else doesn't see that and see the work I've put in, then I'll go do something else. So it's definitely political. I've seen it with really good friends who are amazing drivers. I mean, it's just a difficult sport when you're, it's not like, MLB or NHL or NFL, where if you're the best football player in the world, they're going to take you. You can't be a guy with a bunch of money who doesn't know how to play football and go and buy a seat in the NFL. It's impossible. You're going to get killed. Where in racing, you can. If Flavio wants to go race tomorrow, he can buy a car and go race tomorrow. And he can also buy my seat and go race tomorrow. Not on the team I'm with now, obviously, but there's situations where they'll actually just say, yeah, if you have the money, let's go. So it's definitely very political. I'm super fortunate now to be with a team that's super loyal to me, and loyal to their drivers in general. So, but a lot of people aren't in that position. So it's definitely a grind for a lot of people.
A lot of professional athletics is about character, and when you can have the pick of a whole bunch of people to sit in one seat, sometimes companies start to think about who do they want to deal with, who do they want to represent them. Some of my favorite stories on Roman DeAngelis and who you are now, besides the being a race car driver, come with some of the races you won when you were younger. I was at Mosport when you won and you were standing on the top of the podium and they handed you sparkling apple juice because you weren't the drinking age in Ontario. And I laughed and your dad said, you know how many bottles of apple juice that kid has? But you won a Porsche when you won the Porsche series. What'd you do with that Porsche?
Yeah, so when I won the Canadian and American Championship, I got a Porsche for both championships. So I kept one, and then I donated one to the children's hospital that I was raising money for at the time, so they could like go and take kids for rides and take them to the track and stuff like that. So it was all wrapped like a race car and stuff. So it was pretty cool.
So you're a guy who needs to pay at this stage in your career to get to races and rides. You get a 911 and you give it to a children's hospital that that you got to know because you went and did some Make-A-Wish or type of experience with them. I think that's important from the corporate world. I represent a lot of companies that are in the auto space that spend money in that space. The fact that you win is important, but man, do I want to be associated with that kid. And I think part of your great relationship with your current team is they saw that in you. Yeah, you can tick off the laps faster than the alternative, but boy, when you go and take your helmet off at the end of the race, it's like, hey, that's a guy that I want representing me. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that current racing team, because you said you love Daytona and it's a dream of yours, but something special happened this February. Talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. We won Daytona, which was pretty special. That was definitely one of the ones that I wanted to tick off and always dreamed of doing that. So that was for sure the best day of my life and my racing career so far. That was a pretty special moment. Had my dad there, my sister there, some family friends. So it was just yeah, it's hard to describe how good it felt. I got lucky too because it was just everything sort of lined. The thing with these races too is like a sprint race, you can get lucky in a pit stop and you can win the race. Daytona is 24 hours. So like you have a wheel nut fall off, it's over. You have the car dies for a minute, it could be over. You never know. And they're never perfect either, but it's just risk management. How much stuff breaks, how many incidents happen, is there damage on the car? Like you can end your race very, very quickly. We had the car shut off completely, like a 40-second reset with 2.5 hours to go, and we still won. So there's never a perfect Daytona, but there's more perfect than everybody else. So it was just a great moment. Still now I think about it, I don't even really remember how it happened or what happened. I didn't really click in for a while as well, because I remember getting out of the car. There was like 2.5 hours to go, or 2 hours to go, and I handed it to my teammate who was going to get in and finish. And I walked back to where our motorhome was. I said, I'm not going to go to the pits until there's 10 minutes left of the race. I think I did everything possible that I could have done. I handed the car over and in first with a good lead, a good buffer. The car's clean. I was like, if we win or if we don't finish, I think this was by far the best performance I've had in a race in my life. So you know what? It is what it is. It happens. So I showered, packed my luggage, made a sandwich, relaxed a bit. And then 15 minutes ago, I walked back to the pits. And a lot of my friends who were driving as well are patting me. They're like, it's looking good. It's looking good. And then it started to snowball into the longest 15 minutes of my life, waiting every lap, watching every sector to make sure that we weren't losing pace or anything, and checking the gaps of the cars behind. But when just the team in general, my manager, who's also in the car, who's driving, he's done it 23 times Daytona, and he's never won. There's guys that win it on their first time. There's guys that have won it 6 times, and he's done it 21 times or 22 times, and he's never won. So just to be in that atmosphere, and we did our first Daytona together, me and Ian. It was just amazing. And to win the championship the year before, it was just everything kind of built up. It was an amazing moment.
Some might not know you're just as into the engineering as you are the racing, right, Roman? You're going to school right now. You're going to university. You're studying engineering. It's the mechanics of it that are equally as tantalizing to you, correct?
Yeah, it's super interesting. I think it's from an engineering standpoint, it's a great sport because there's so many aspects and so many components that, there's electrical systems, mechanical systems, hydraulic systems. The car is there's so many components. So it's to mentally process the fact that you can beat on those cars for 24 hours straight, like completely beat on them and nothing breaks, or it's pretty insane. As an engineering student, to fathom that that's possible still is pretty eye-opening. So
Go ahead, Flavio.
Well, I was just thinking, what's next? I think you were probably going down that path too. What's next? You're 22 and you won Daytona. You won Porsche Series in both countries. You won your series last year with your current team. Well, where's this career taking you? Where are you going, Roman?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's races that I definitely want to tick off. I want to do Le Mans at some point. That's for me. That's another goal. So Daytona was a goal. Le Mans is a goal. The 24 hours of Nürburgring, that's also a race that I think is underrated in terms of how, let's say, globally known it is. I think it's way harder to win than probably 99.9% of any other motor race in the world. So that's one as well. I would like to go back and do Bathurst in Australia again, and also do the World Endurance Championship, which is where, Le Mans kind of sits in the middle of that. So there's some races in Asia and Europe and stuff like that. So I don't know. I mean, for me, as long as I can race and drive and you can call it a job. Doesn't really feel like a job, but if I can continue to do this, I definitely will do it for as long as I can. I mean, I think the amount of time that athletes have to put in at a young age, and missing out on being with friends and family, and it's not easy. So I think to be able to be at a competitive level and do it as a job and kind of have made it, let's say, in your sport, you want to ride that out as long as you can. So as long as I can race whatever it is, I'm happy.
Are you still power washing or working at the pizza place?
No, I definitely gave some of that up. I'm still in school, so I'm trying to balance a lot right now. Make a couple pizzas on the weekend or whatnot, but no, just it's been really busy, but it's been really good. So
before we go, Flavio has to tell the prom story, or at least you have to respond to Flavio telling your prom story. Flavio.
Okay.
Here's this kid. He goes and wins the championship. And, as I'm chatting with your dad, he's like, well, he's trying to be a regular kid too. He's at school. He's working at this pizza place, doing some work with me. And he says, he's got to come down from this high to be a normal kid and go to the prom. And sometimes those of us, we're watching professional athletes, you're thinking that's your life. But you've done so much so early. You won the Porsche championship before you got your driver's license. It was funny to me to watch pictures of you going to your prom. How are you a normal kid at the prom when you're also a Porsche champion?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different. Like I said, like people who are athletes and they grow up and they're devoted to a sport, you miss a lot. Like you miss a lot of stuff like that. I mean, I remember a good story is my graduation. I had a flight at 6 o'clock on my graduation, my high school graduation. So I stood up, got my diploma envelope, whatever it was, and walked out of the building, took off my thing, and just sprinted to my car and hauled ass to the airport basically, and got on a flight, and then was at a race that weekend. So, I mean, it's I don't know. It's at the end of the day, I have both racing and my normal life, and they're combined. I mean, my family, my friends, my girlfriend, everybody knows about racing and how important it is to me. So I'm able to mix both of them really well. It's definitely not easy sometimes. Sometimes you miss home, sometimes you miss racing. It's just it's like anything, you just have to have a good balance. But yeah, definitely had some good stories of being late and missing exams and all kinds of disastrous stuff when it comes to trying to mix both of them. So
well, you're going to be an engineer at the end of this, and you have a great career as a race car driver. But
fingers crossed.
For most parents, my kid's an engineer is a hell of an achievement. So the fact that you're doing both is amazing.
Yeah, it's been good. Well, we'll see if I make it to the finish line there. So it's going to be a grind.
Good.
Wonderful. You're an inspiration. Congratulations on all of your success. And best of luck on your future success, Roman. And thank you for being a guest on our program.
Thank you guys for having me. It's great to talk to you.
Great to see
Wonderful.
you, Roman.